It is disturbing when somebody writes you into their dreams and doesn't let you go and holds you accountable and responsible for their emotions whenever you use your free will to say, "This isn't for me." It was a couple years ago, I had a close friend who wrote me into their vision. And this was fair. We had been talking about doing collaborations together. We were very, very close. They had been shown a timeline where we had a fruitful venture together. They came out of their experience very enthusiastic and instructed me to allocate funds, investment funds, to make this vision come to fruition. This was a time in my life where I did not have the capital to do this. And in fact, it was not something that fully resonated with me because they saw me in a particular location that I didn't see myself in. And I was, in fact, preparing to be in a different location. And my guides even prepared me for this, and I was starting to mentally prepare for this. So it was interesting that the vision that they had saw me in a place that didn't actually feel in alignment with me and started pushing the timing of this collaboration with capital that I really didn't have to allocate to it. And even more fascinating to me is that me saying no actually caused a rift in our friendship. Almost as though me having a different resonance, a different alignment, a different agenda or goal was so deeply disturbing for them that we couldn't even talk about it after. And to this day, we're no longer friends. In a large part because of how they reacted to my boundary and saying no, and how they devolved and expected me to still engage in a manner that was pleasing to them when I did not want to. And I found it to be inauthentic, and I didn't want to pretend. I used to make content about reality shifting, and in fact, I have a playlist on this channel. It was my first playlist that I made, and I dedicated almost an entire year, I think, to reality shifting and esoteric topics related to it to help people actually shift into the timeline of their choosing. And I also used to include my email and solicit clients who were interested in shifting to different timelines. I stopped doing this because of a variety of different reasons, but one that I haven't spoken about is that I found it disturbing how many people, and I still have listeners from that time, and I'm not speaking about anybody in particular. If you happen to be one of them, this is just a general observation that I have. How many people had a really hard time letting others that they cared about living their own life, living their own timeline, and sometimes even passing. And there is something about our attachment to others and our attachment to our dreams that we pigeonhole those who we love into almost characters and roles in these plays and these scripts that we devise. It's almost as though we're writing our manifestation plan and we're like, you're going to be in it, and you're going to be in it, and you're going to be in it. And then when those people say, wait a second, I have my own manifestation plan. I'm not sure I want to be in it in this role or this capacity or at this point in time. All of a sudden, there are feelings of betrayal, feelings of admonishment, of hurt, of you're letting me down because you're going to live your life in a way that doesn't include me in the way that I want to be included. I remember also receiving a lot of negative feedback from some key people in my life when I was undergoing a spiritual awakening. And some of that feedback involved just up and leaving the country randomly and not communicating at the pace and the cadence that people wanted me to. And I found a similar feeling that I was responsible for the emotions of other people's lives, at least my part and my role. And if I tried to change my role, then some people, not everybody, some people had a really big problem with it. And my needs were not really considered. And some of those people, not all again, almost as though they had inserted me into a slot. They pigeonholed me into playing a role in their play. God forbid, I stepped off the stage to take a break or to participate in somebody else's play. And it was very eye-opening, or much less to write my own play and to try to become a creator of my own life instead of just a unwitting participant in everybody else's play. I took a really big break from all relationships to really take inventory, to understand who I was, not who I was conditioned to become, who the world made me, who I thought I was, but actually deep down inside, that existential question, who am I? And I needed to clear out my life and have silence to become acquainted with myself. And I was shocked at how disruptive this was. And I have one person, perhaps even two, that still have not forgiven me for taking space that I needed to answer this question. When we are pigeonholed, it's easy to see this karmic disaster. It's almost like handcuffs, where you know how little kids play and they say, okay, well, you're going to be the monster. You're going to be the this. You're going to be the that. And it reminds me of that, where when kids, very, very young, have an idea in their mind and they want to play it out with their friends, they get really upset if other people don't play along. And it's eye-opening to understand that there's something about our social dynamics and how we need others to fulfill certain needs in our life. We actually need them to play a role for us. And when they try to step out, play a different role, for some, again, not all, it's actually really challenging. And there's a lot of interpersonal struggle which happens as a result. My friend, who were no longer friends, and I want to keep it that way, if they happen to be listening, and sometimes they check in, I can feel their energy still sometimes, never actually asked me what I resonated with. I have since grown from that experience and have come to protect my manifestations and my collaborations a little more diligently, and to be wary of those who get fixated on one timeline, as there are many out there in the multiverse. As this is often evidence of still being in a cognitive framework which is tied to the old world. There is one life, one timeline, one existence. It's normal. That's not criticism. But when you start to open up to other existences beyond space and time, beyond just the present moment, and you start to feel the fluidity of multiple timelines, and you start to unpack your own attachment to somebody being in your life in a certain capacity, like a lover or a spouse, a friend, a partner, or even a parent, or even alive. And you start to realize that our strong desire for one particular outcome repels people because energetically it doesn't feel right for a lot of us. Why are you trying to hold me in your prison? Your karmic prison, where we're going to play out superheroes or villains or tag team friendships, and so on and so forth. Why can't we see past those roles? What if I don't want to be the devil's wife again? I've done that. And so as a result, when you feel this hounding or harassment, particularly extending beyond one lifeline and through death for eternity, not even death can do us part. Some people make pacts like that, spiritual pacts. I believe Scientology is one of them, where, at least back in the day, from what I studied very briefly, I'm not a scholar of Scientology and I'm not a Scientologist. So take what I say at face value because I'm not an expert, but they had people sign multi-lifetime contracts, which is crazy to me because how could you be tethered to somebody across lifelines? How is that contract valid if you don't remember across all timelines? How on earth is that ethical? And why would anybody want that anyway? There's a certain rigidity in possessiveness. You're mine forever and ever and ever, and I'm going to hunt you down. Okay, why? Like, actually, when we think about it, are you really going to have that same level of vigor for eternity? And if you are, does that mean that you're not an evolving being? Pigeonholing people into our manifestations and our plans and forcing people to play roles is one of those karmic cycles that I find to be repellent, quite honestly. And I found that, just speaking candidly, A lot of people were attracted to reality shifting content when they wanted to do exactly that. They wanted to shift to another reality or a dimension where they could get their boyfriend back, their girlfriend, their whomever, and they could stay in a lifeline that had expired. And they were struggling with that. And it felt as though there were some ethical issues working with people like that and asking them to invest capital to force that to happen. There was something that felt really slimy about it because for some people, it felt like I knew it wasn't their highest path. And it felt like a bait and switch to let them hire me for me to convince them that their dreams were not really in alignment with what they actually wanted, that was actually going to lead them to the future that they did want, because very often they just didn't want to feel the pain of letting go. We can work through the pain of letting go without having to force somebody into our manifestation and force somebody to play out the same conversations, the same cycles, the same rhythm that they're trying to depart from. Graciously, in most cases, it is like a form of a spiritual grape where you love spell somebody, interrupt their life and their dreams in order to force them to stay with you when they have made a decision that they don't want to, or it's not resonating with them. There are other reasons I don't make content like that anymore. But that was one of the pressing moments that I realized how dark some of the esoteric practices could become. Because if you had the ability to stamp somebody's soul or to brand them, to make them yours, when they wanted to leave and experience other lessons with other soul contracts and other people, and you had within you the power, the conviction, the understanding of how to do it, you could chain somebody to you in an afterlife. You could chase somebody down across timelines. And what an epic failure of usage of abilities, in my personal opinion, when that energy could be used to leveling the self up, understanding what's going on inside that makes you so attached to that particular person playing that particular role, even when they don't want to participate. The best analogy that I can think of is this idea of working at a company for eternity, which would be absurd, right? So you go in for a job interview, everything looks great, and they say, but you have to agree that you're never going to work anywhere else again, not only for the next decade, several decades, until the end of your life, until the end of next life and the next life. You know, it's absurd because we're here to learn and to grow. Imagine holding somebody hostage in a job position. Imagine the soul crushing pain of that. And forcing somebody to stay as a clerk or a secretary or a teacher or a bus driver or a janitor for literally lifetimes and lifetimes and for eternity. When most people crave learning and growth, upward mobility, better lifestyles, novelty, different lessons, self-mastery, learning new skills, it's horrifying, actually, if you think about it, to pigeonhole somebody so completely and then to misuse any sort of authority, prestige, or power. God forbid, esoteric abilities in order to do exactly that. Like, what type of manager would you have to be to literally want all of your employees static, never growing, always stagnating, and always unhappy in their job positions? So similarly, why would you force somebody who has passed, moved on to another life, another family, another existence? Why would you force them to return? Why would you force somebody to not learn with another romantic partner and to stay by your side, even though they might have learned the lesson that they came here to learn with you? Why would we force anybody into any situation that actually they don't resonate with, that their guides and their heart is telling them that's not the place or the opportunity for me, and I need to move on to something else? And that, saying that it doesn't resonate, it doesn't work, is so frightening, so upsetting, that it completely breaks a relationship. That's how many people live when they are trying to pigeonhole others.